The next great liberal boogeyman, Tim Walz. The two-term Minnesota governor is not well known outside his state, and Republicans want to introduce him as a liberal. Radical. Republicans are racing to define Tim Walz as the next liberal boogeyman, hoping to capitalize on voters' unfamiliarity with Vice President Kamala Harris's new running mate before Democrats can introduce him to the country. Harris on Tuesday tapped Walz, a veteran and former school teacher who held a battleground congressional district in Minnesota for over a decade before twice winning the governorship, in part to help shore up support among blue-collar, white voters in the Rust Belt. Walz rocketed into consideration after a series of media interviews that excited Democrats, including popularizing the now familiar refrain that the GOP ticket is weird. Now, Republicans are moving quickly to define on their own terms the little-known Minnesota governor who has now been thrust onto the national stage, painting Walz as a far-left, radical, and wannabe coastal elite, just as Democrats quickly leapt on Vance's elevation to fuel an almost non-stop bad news cycle since his selection. That guy has done so much stuff, he's just going to be a gift to the battleground states, said Dave Carney, a Republican strategist who heads the pro-Trump super PAC Preserve America, referring to Walz's record as governor. It's great for our side because they really blew it. Republicans on Tuesday began hammering Walz's progressive politics and highlighting his support from Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, and others to yoke the second-term governor, who has been embraced across the Democratic political spectrum, to the far-left wing of his party. Vance, speaking to reporters ahead of a campaign event Tuesday, claimed the pick highlights how radical Kamala Harris is. This is a person who listened to the Hamas wing of her own party in selecting a nominee, Vance said, in a nod to how Republicans are claiming, without evidence, that Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's Jewish faith and support for Israel played a factor in Harris's decision to pass over him. Vance said he left a voicemail for Walz congratulating him, and that he looks forward to a robust conversation with his new rival. He later said he would debate Walz after the governor officially becomes Democrats' vice presidential nominee. Walz was first elected to Congress in 2006, representing a rural, red-leaning district. In Congress, he opposed the TARP bailout and broadly supported gun rights, and was endorsed by the National Rifle Association's political arm, before denouncing the group following the 2018 shooting in Parkland, Florida. But in statewide office, which he first won in 2018, he governed as a mainstream Democrat. When Democrats took complete control of the state legislature following the 2022 midterms, he signed into law a slew of policies off of progressives' wish list, including universal background checks, protections for gender-affirming care, and free school lunches for students. GOP elected officials and operatives have focused on his governorship, seizing on Walz's handling of the aftermath of George Floyd's murder in Minneapolis, for which the governor has faced criticism for not moving more quickly to deploy the state's National Guard to respond to increasingly violent protests. And they began circulating a screenshot of a June 2020 tweet from Harris, before she was named Joe Biden's running mate, encouraging her followers to donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, an organization that was posting bail for activists arrested during protests that summer. "It's going to help us," Trump pollster John McLaughlin argued. "It's still a battle between Trump and Harris, but this is her first big decision as candidate, and she picked a socialist who went along with her when she said let's defund police, bail people out." Trump's senior advisor Chris Lachivita, who was famously behind the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth attack ads against John Kerry's military service, also posted about Walz's service record, recirculating a paid op-ed from 2018 from a pair of veterans criticizing his service. Democrats were quick to push back on Republicans' characterizations of Walz's record, who has received near-universal acclaim from across the party following his selection. To characterize Walz as left is just so unreal. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who served with Walz during his time in Washington, said on MSNBC, "He's right down the middle. He's a heartland of America Democrat." And while Trump's allies were aligned in maligning Walz, some Republicans offered praise for Harris's pick. Former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, now the party's U.S. Senate nominee there, offered congratulations to Walz, saying, "While we come from different parties, I have always appreciated his dedication to public service." Republicans were concerned that Harris would tap Shapiro and argued Tuesday that they dodged a serious political vulnerability when Walz was selected instead. Carney said he was stunned that Democrats were passing over the articulate, young, dynamic Pennsylvania governor for an old, fat guy who is just as progressive as you get. But even Republicans admit that a vice president's election is unlikely to shift their overall strategy. Carney said his group on Tuesday had begun brainstorming ways it'll hit Walz, while remaining focused on attacking Harris. Preserve America, which is funded by billionaire Miriam Adelson, has already begun running anti-Harris ads on television. The GOP is running headlong into a wall of Democratic enthusiasm for Walz, who was being widely praised Tuesday for his work elevating key components of the party's platform as governor and for his effectiveness as a messenger. And that support extends far beyond progressives. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who left the Democratic Party to become an independent and has been critical of Harris's ascension on the ticket, was quick to applaud her choice. "My friend Governor Tim Walz will bring normality back to the most chaotic political environment that most of us have ever seen," Manchin said in a statement Tuesday, adding that there was no one better than Governor Walz to help bring our country closer together and bring balance back to the Democratic Party. Democrats, Progressive Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat New York, said in response, are in disconcerting levels of array.